So yeah, it's a wonderful thing to look at, and a wonderful discovery, that recent discovery of phosphine in the cloud tops of Venus. So Venus, they call it our twin planet for planet Earth, but actually it's really different. I mean, it's similar size, much more similar in size to the Earth than Mars. Mars is about a third of the size. Venus is about the same size, but very different in terms of its atmosphere. It's incredibly hot and incredibly dense atmosphere. In fact, if you're walking on the surface of Venus, we always say it's like, it would be like walking at the bottom of the ocean on Earth. That's the pressure of the atmosphere. But in the cloud tops, the pressure gets much, much, much less before you get to space. And they've discovered this molecule, which is only found on Earth from life. There are geological processes that can make it, but I think that those are only found on the gas giants, on Jupiter and Saturn. Not sure about Uranus and Neptune. But yeah, so the thinking is that nobody can figure out how this molecule got there in abundance, relative abundance. I mean, it's not like all over the place, but it's definitely the signatures there. And currently we're trying to, it's either unknown geochemistry or a signature for life. And, you know, as a scientist, you can't say that's definitely that there's life, but it's a hopeful sign. And either way, it's leading to something brand new. So it's very exciting as a discovery.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, exciting.
It is very
exciting. Thank you.
And it's set the pace for the meeting today. So I will now request all the Rotarians and guests present to kindly raise, if you happen to have something to drink, if you can raise a glass. And we can toast to the President of the Republic of Kenya. To the President.
To the President. To the President.
Thank you. And we will now officially begin the meeting. I will now request Rotarian Clinton, since he's with us right now, to kindly sing for us the first verse of the national anthem.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, President Ritesh. I'm privileged to be given this opportunity to present to you the national anthem. O God of all in creation, bless this our world and nation. Justice be our shield and defender. May we dwell in peace and liberty. Let it be found within our borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotarian Clinton. And I will now request Rotarian Susan Murabana to kindly do the introduction of Rotary Basic Education and Literacy Month.
So this month is the Rotary Literacy and Education Month, and we're very excited to be able to work with the youth as Rotarians to try and support them in their journey and try to reduce literacy as a community, as Rotarians. President Ritesh caught me off guard, doesn't prepare to read anything, but I'll just say
it seems we have lost Susan.
very natural.
Susan, kindly unmute. Yes.
Sorry, I think I lost connection there. I hope we don't have that. What a bad thing to do during a very important day and month. As you said, this is a month where Rotarians celebrate literacy and education and try to work with different communities, especially with the youth, to promote more literacy globally. our club, Rotary Club of Nairobi, is involved in so many projects with the youth and future Rotarians, from mentorship to supporting schools through sanitation, water, buildings and health. So we'll be hearing that more later, but just to say, this is a very important month because the youth are our future, and education and literacy is a key to that future.
Thank you very much indeed, Rotarian Susan. And yes, sorry to Mike, Vice President Mike. Yes, sorry, Susan. Thank you so much for that. I actually had to request you to give us the introduction to the month, as we were waiting for Ambassador Josephine to join us. And Ambassador has joined us. She's the Sergeant at Arms for today. Ambassador, welcome. And kindly, if you can say a prayer for us.
Good afternoon, President Ritesh, fellow Rotarians and guests. I want to apologize for logging on a bit late. We started a little early and I was just commuting to my perch. Let's say the Rotary grace together. O God and giver of all good, we thank you for our daily food. May Rotary ways and Rotary ways help us to serve thee all of our days. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And Ambassador, can we begin with a very small segment where you can share some announcements, and thereafter we can proceed with the introduction of the speakers by Rotarian Irina.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and guests. I want to just say a little bit about Rotary at the United Nations. And many of you have been made aware from the various posts on our WhatsApp page this week that the UN is celebrating its 75th anniversary. You may be aware of the Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted 5 years ago in many countries, and especially in Africa, which was already off track for the Millennium Development Goals. But in order that we would charter a new path, we had this new goal, the Sustainable Development Goals. That, together with the 75th anniversary, gives us a moment to recollect our energies and focus. This year's General Assembly is highlighting the COVID pandemic, which we know has claimed almost 1 million lives globally and pushed many hundreds and thousands into unexpected hardship. There will be lots of interventions on COVID tools, on vaccines and immunization. And that brings Rotary into this discussion because Rotary has a very key role in the area. But beyond that, there will be lots of discussion on general social development. Why am I speaking about it today? Rotary has organized a team that is called the Rotary International Representative Network. This representative network has members that represent Rotary in many multilateral and international institutions, including the United Nations. Our club is actually very privileged to have amongst us Sally Gitoho, who is a representative to UNESCO. We also have the immediate past DG, Joe Tin, who is a representative to United Nations Environmental Program. And I am the representative to UNICEF and to the United Nations office in Nairobi. So we want to, at this moment, acknowledge the role that RI headquarters has given us in representing the UN. I'd like to ask that you find a moment to just log in to any one of the links that have been provided at the Secretariat, at UNESCO, at UNDP, and any other link you'll find, including those that are side events, and listen to the UN dialogue so that you can refresh your understanding of the global concerns. I'd like us to actually just raise a toast or clap, particularly for Sally. This is a new assignment. Before this time, Sally was handling UN Habitat. Thank you very much for allowing me to share a little bit on Rotary's work at the UN.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And a round of applause to the hard work and efforts of all the individuals who are representing Rotary at the various capacities at United Nations. Congratulations. I will now request Rotarian Irina to carry forward the program for today.
Thank you, President Ritesh. Thank you, Rotarians, for joining the meeting. We shall not do the introduction in the usual way we do it. I'll hand over to Rtn Susan, where we'll get to hear from the panelists themselves about what they do, their background. So Rtn Susan can take over.
Thank you, Rotarian Irina, fellow Rotarians, distinguished guests, presidents, and representatives from the United Nations. It's a very exciting day today, obviously because of all that's happening in the world. And before I proceed, I just want to check that we have our keynote speaker, Irina.
She'll be joining us at around 1 p.m. Okay. So yeah, we thought we should start with the introduction of the panel.
So as we wait for our keynote speaker, we'll just go ahead and introduce our panelists. Before I do that, I just want to repeat what I said earlier, that we need literacy as a global community, and it's very nice to have this as one of the core things and a month celebrated within the Rotary community. As Rotary Club of Nairobi, we do work a lot in literacy and mentorship projects. We mentor our young Rotaractors as professionals because they're going to be the next Rotarians. We also work a lot with Interact clubs. These are high school students who are already doing a lot in terms of serving the community through our support. We have storytelling and writing competitions. We sponsor participation with the Interact Career Day. And most of our projects are actually centered around schools. As I said, we have water and sanitation projects. We have one of the really good projects, Everyone Needs to Eat to Think, and it's a GICO project. We have Rotarian, we have our GICO project run by our Mama GICO, and then we have the sanitary towels and sleeping children around the world. Now, in today's world, we are all talking about issues that are really affecting us in our health, in our environment. Climate change is happening. We have, this pandemic, and we have been forced to listen to scientists because the solutions of the problems we have today will only come through science. But sadly for us, we also have a lot of missing information with the current social media trends. There's a lot of people who know everything and sharing everything, and everyone gets information from everyone instead of listening to the scientists. So today it's really important for us to listen to the scientists and know what is going on and how we'll get solutions. And I'm very excited because of the role I serve in the science community to have these leading ladies as part of our panelists. We have Dr. Grace Mwaura, we have Diana Musyoka, and we have Dr. Kagonya Awori. Sadly, we don't have Dr. Rose Mutiso joining us today because of a family issue. But in that order, I'd like to invite our panelists to kindly give us a quick introduction of what they do. 1 minute introduction. So Dr. Grace Mwaura, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, fellow Rotarians and guests. My name is Grace Mwaura. I'm also a Rotarian with the Rotary Club of Nairobi, Musyoka North, and I'm delighted to join friends and Rotarians for this wonderful afternoon. I am a geographer, I'm a human geographer, and I specialize in something Susan has been talking about. I research young people and how they fit in society and how they make a living in this contemporary society that we are living in. My current job right now is at the African Academy of Sciences, a Pan-African science institution, where our work is to support and build a critical mass on the African continent. So we support scientists through funding, through capacity strengthening activities, and mostly we start at a PhD level and above. So I am in charge of a scientific community of over 600 scientists from all scientific disciplines you can think of, both young and old. And I'm truly delighted that the Rotary Club of Nairobi is interested in such matters. Thanks for the invitation. Over to you, Susan.
Dr. Grace, thank you very much, Dr. Grace Mwaura. I didn't know you're a Rotarian, and it's very nice to have you here today. Our next panelist I'll allow to introduce herself is Diana Musyoka. Welcome, and please introduce yourself and what you do.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. And I'm very delighted to join this meeting today, to be amongst these great people. And so my name is Diana Musyoka. I would call myself an environmentalist as well as a nuclear scientist. And so I work with the Nuclear Power and Energy Agency. This is under the Ministry of Energy in Kenya. And my work there basically since I joined is to give guidelines and direction in the implementation of a nuclear power program in Kenya. I don't know, I believe most of us have heard about the quest for Kenya to diversify on how we get our electricity in the country. So that's how I joined my company. And most of my work has been in environmental assessment. And as we go on, maybe I will give more light on what I do. Once again, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
As I said earlier, we have a team of leading ladies who are leading in their careers. Very happy to let Dr. Kagonya Awori introduce herself and tell us what she does.
Thank you very much, Susan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here amongst Rotarians. Yeah, my name is Kagonya. So I'm a computer engineer. So I specialize in human-computer interaction. That means I observe how people use technology, and I also study people so that now I can build technological solutions that actually solve their problems. I currently work at Safaricom. I'm a senior manager there, and I more or less lead the UX, user experience efforts there. And it's been really fun to be a woman in STEM and to support other women who are trying to get into STEM or who are in STEM. Yeah, so I love computers, and I'm very happy to share my passion with you guys over this next hour or so. Thanks.
Clearly, all the panelists are very interested in and support anything to do with the environment and literacy. Obviously, computer technology. Kenya is leading in terms of mobile app development, which is such a good thing, as well as, the environment. As a young girl growing up, I remember seeing Professor Wangari Maathai, the late, struggle for our environment, and that had a strong effect for me as a young girl. And today, I hope that so many of the young kids here love the environment, but also it's us as adults to really do the right thing for our environment and to share the right information. Now, without too much of that, we can talk a lot about the environment and the computers and women and all that, but I wanted to find out from our panelists, quick one, what got you into science, because you're all scientists, and was there someone who influenced you into getting into science? Perhaps you can start with Diana Musyoka.
Thank you, Susan. And so I think my desire for science, I could point it back to my dad. I remember since I was very young, he encouraged me to pursue science subjects, even when it seemed so tough. I remember in high school, when it was time to choose subjects and I wanted to drop one of the sciences, he told me, no, you have to pursue all the sciences. And I gave it all my best to pursue it. And I could say that is what drove me into pursuing my studies in environmental science. And later on, when I joined my company as an environmentalist, and after working there for some time, I realized I'm working on this nuclear science thing, and I don't have specific training on it. And so I decided to pursue my master's in nuclear power plant engineering in South Korea. So that's a brief on how I got myself into being an environmentalist who is also a nuclear scientist in a way. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear how men always play a huge role in supporting us in our careers. I certainly have had that as a young girl. I'm also made to believe that Professor Judi Wakhungu is now has joined in. Is that correct, President Ritesh?
This is Judi. I'm on the line.
Yeah, Susan, she's here now.
Very nice to have you, Professor Judi. And we've just started our panel discussion with our panelists introducing themselves. I think just to keep us in that same movement, let me allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll proceed.
Actually, Susan, if you don't mind, just a slight change. I'm going to introduce Professor Judi, if that's okay, because I've been instructed by the President to do that. A formal introduction to our keynote speaker. You should all know that Judi is actually my childhood friend. We've been friends since we were in primary school, so it's very personal for me. Very important that we're doing the empowerment of women and in science particularly, and she's a leading star since the day I knew her in that capacity as a woman inspiring others and a scientist. She was brilliant at school, primary school, high school, and of course a university, and her career demonstrates that. Her Excellency, Professor Judi Wakhungu, is our past environmental State Secretary. So that's where, you know, she comes from. She's now joined us from France. She's the ambassador for Kenya to France. And just her background, she is a geologist with vast experience in geothermal exploration, petroleum exploration, and academia. She was Kenya's first woman to serve in these fields. Judi was appointed as Kenya's ambassador to France, Portugal, Monaco, and Holy See in 2018. Between 2013 to 2018, Judi was Kenya's Cabinet Secretary, Minister for Environment and Natural Resources. She was Kenya's first woman to serve in this capacity. Her seminal achievements at the helm of ministry include enacting the Kenya Wildlife Conservation and Management Act 2013, Kenya Environmental Conservation and Management Act Amendment 2015, and Climate Change Act 2016, the Water Act 2016. Her Excellency spearheads the historic burning of Kenya's entire stockpile of ivory and rhino in 2016. In 2017, she banned single-use plastic bags in Kenya, and many countries were inspired to follow. So she is a global leader and sets a standard very high for everyone. She's the recipient of many national and international awards and she also currently serves on many international boards. It's my greatest privilege and pleasure, Judi, to introduce you to our wonderful club, Nairobi Club, and just to say how proud I am of you. And I'm so thrilled that you're going to be our keynote speaker. And that's what everyone's here to hear. So I'll pass it back to you for your keynote.
Thank you so much, Anuja, and thank you, Rotarians, for your very, very kind invitation. I keenly follow your work from President Ritesh to all of you, and you have no idea how much we admire you and the impact that you have on the ground. It's also a great pleasure, of course, to be introduced by my sister, my childhood friend, that we have walked so many journeys with together since we were children. And then here we are again, Anuja, we still keep going. What I would like to do today, with your kind permission, is just to make a few comments. The panel has distinguished women, all of whom have traveled very different journeys in the STEM world. And when I talk about STEM, I'm talking about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we know very well that if we look at the numbers and the participation of women in these fields, even though we've participated in these fields for over 200 years, and we've had some very distinguished women leaders in this particular field, we are still very few. Let me just mention a few of the distinguished women. And if I use the Nobel Prize as a standard, it's important to know that the only person in the world who has received 2 Nobels in 2 different fields is Marie Curie. She received a Nobel Prize in physics. She also received a Nobel Prize in chemistry. There are many others, but the important thing is also to realize this. Again, if we use the Nobel again as a standard of distinguished performance in the STEM fields, again, just looking at the example of physics, so far, there have been about 209 awards in physics. And these, it's only 3 women that have received that distinction. Fast track to today. And the question we ask today is that globally, where are women in science? Globally, women in science today, if you look at the STEM fields, vary. If we look at just science on the whole, I would say that women are achieving parity if we look at science on the whole. And especially in the fields of medical and health sciences, we've achieved parity there. And I would even argue that we are excelling. If you look at the fields of technology, engineering, and mathematics, not as well. If you look at technology, for example, I would say we're less than 10%. And again, technology, you have to look specifically at the fields. Engineering, 20, 22%, depending on where you are globally. Mathematics, it's about also 20%. The question then is, why do we not fare as well? And there are very many studies that have tried to decipher this problem. What is the challenge about women? There are studies that say, okay, boys or men like things, and women, girls, they prefer people. And so that we gravitate to fields where we are dealing with people and solving livelihoods and people's problems. But is it that simple? No, it is not. Let us look at countries that have achieved gender parity. And countries that have achieved gender parity, in this case, I would say the Scandinavian countries are a very powerful example of where women have achieved gender parity. Again, if we look at the percentage of women in STEM fields, and in this particular case, again, it's the technology, engineering, and mathematics aspect, that although, if we take Sweden, for example, although Sweden has achieved gender parity, Norway has achieved gender parity, but where are the women in the STEM fields in those particular countries, especially when we focus on the technology, engineering, and mathematics? They're just not there. They're below the 20%, basically the figures that I've just mentioned. Then interestingly enough, if we look at certain countries where they don't have gender parity, and here I may say even Iran, where they've not yet achieved gender parity. But if you look at these technical fields, technology, engineering, and mathematics, there women are faring even better than they do in the Scandinavian countries. So we have to probe deeper into what is it that affects women. First, why is it that we want women to pursue these fields? These are the subjects or the disciplines that drive innovation, drive our economies. They are dominated from a male perspective. And what we know is that in any discipline, when we have diversity in the discipline, in terms of diversity by gender, diversity by race, diversity by even socioeconomic experience, that field does fare better in terms of serving the greater good and the communities. So we have to delve in further. What is it? When we did some studies many years ago, and these studies were basically focusing on undergraduate women in the engineering, technology, and mathematics field, we realized that the attrition rates for women were extremely high as compared to men. This is a phenomenon that has been referred to as the leaky pipeline. And this is the pipeline of women that continues to leak at every stage as women evolve and develop in these fields. So in other words, if we're starting from primary school to high school, to the undergraduate, to the graduate school, on to PhDs and beyond, at each stage, there's a leaky pipeline for women, the attrition rates are high, and women are dropping out. This study that was conducted at the undergraduate level for women in these fields, the subject was talking about leaving. And why is it that women are leaving these fields? It was revealing what that study did. It was conducted several over 100 universities in the United States, in colleges of engineering, colleges of sciences, and so on. And many women said they left because they didn't have the role models. We identify with role models. Who would I like to emulate? And who would I like to be like? And what kind of lifestyle would I aspire to? So women said they left simply because it was male dominated and they didn't have the role models that they could identify with. That was one reason. Another reason was I came here to study civil engineering or electronics or acoustics. And then I had to take all these prerequisites. I didn't like calculus 1. I didn't even like calculus 2. I didn't like math 55. So that there were all these subjects that the women, some of the women who left said it was deferring their dreams. They wanted to be able to build bridges, or they wanted to solve environmental problems. And they didn't see how calculus or algebra or some geometry courses were taking them to that aspiration. There were simply some that said, look, in my dormitory, my roommates are studying history, or they're studying psychology, and they're not always in the labs and putting all those hours in the labs the way I am. They have more free time than I do. And then there were some who simply said, you know, it's male dominated. It's male dominated, and I am not able to find and also bring in my perspective. Now, what did we do as professors at that time to address some of these questions? First of all, we set up many, many programs, women in engineering programs that are well known, Association of Women in Science that are well known. There are also many universities that also have programs. For example, a directorate for women in science and engineering, where we can bring in women, we can bring in the role models from industry, we can also bring in role models from academia, business owners, and so on, so that they could serve as role models and encourage the women about the values of being in these fields and the contributions that they can make. So that was one aspect of it. We also realized that in terms of their livelihoods and lifestyle, for example, at the undergraduate level especially, we set up different dormitories, theme dormitories, for example, women in science and engineering dormitory, so that in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the hours spent in labs and in the field, women could identify with those that were having the same challenges and also having the same schedules. We extended this to also have those living environments that were co-ed. So co-ed being supporting both genders. We also matched women with mentors. Again, for women, the issue of mentors was absolutely critical. Critical in the sense that they could identify women that were leaders, that were succeeding in these fields, and also discuss with them the challenges that they were facing. We did not just reduce the mentors to women alone. Very many men stepped up to serve as mentors for all students, of course, including women. We also tried to decipher what were some of the critical challenges in terms of the teaching methods, the pedagogy, and so on. Of course, these fields having been male-dominated since the beginning, perhaps the pedagogy and the teaching and the curriculum is more designed to suit men's systematic thinking. So again, we tried to very much make experiential learning part and parcel of the curriculum so that we could engage more students. This seemed to succeed in terms of many of these projects that were put in place. And I think that many countries, if you look, whether it's Australia, whether it's Kenya, whether it is Turkey, France, here where I am, or in the US, Canada, for example, have set up extremely many projects that are conducive to the conditions on the ground. Fast forward now to this leaky pipeline again, where now women could succeed as undergraduates. In fact, if you look at undergraduate education on the whole, in most countries, if you look on the whole, more degrees are awarded to women than men. So in other words, 51%, 52% of women in terms of disciplines and majors as a whole. But when it comes to the STEM fields, if I leave aside the health and medical sciences, that's where we have the dearth of women, as I've been trying to describe it. Now, the pipeline leaks further as you go into graduate school. And graduate school now, you're specializing. Is it robotics? If it's material science, is it ceramics? Or is it composites? Is it polymers? So it becomes extremely specific, where again we see that there is a dearth of women, there's the dearth of mentoring, there's the dearth of role models. And then this usually coincides when many women are settling down as well. So you've got the demanding hours in the lab, but then you also have lifestyle. This is also the time when women are starting their families. And it's very difficult to be in that very competitive setting when you're starting a family and where there are no programs really, for example, for freezing one's career, to allow one to go home, look after their young families, and then return. It's competitive. In many of these labs, the dependence on the funding is not necessarily from government, but it's competitive. Grant writing becomes extremely competitive. So then again, we see the attrition rates further for women. Now, if we go further to the PhD level, it's the same. Again, where we see these are women in their late 20s, early 30s, that have also got other aspirations in terms of looking after their families, dealing with these very, very competitive careers, and where many of them are even actually forced to delay their promotion or their opportunities, or to delay starting their families until after promotions. In fact, when I was a graduate student pursuing my PhD, when we saw one of the women faculty members, now obviously pregnant, we would congratulate her on the promotion. We'll say, now you got tenure. So you are now secure and you can start your family. The same is also in industry, that there are these challenges and these expectations, and our job has been to improve the climate for women, because knowing that if we improve the climate for women, we improve the climate for all candidates. Let's move further now into, say, the corporate world. Who owns these tech businesses? If you go to Silicon Valley, for example, who owns these companies? And most of these companies are owned by men. And if you look at who is participating in these companies, if it's the area of soft skills, even in Silicon Valley, women are present. But when it actually comes to the techie aspect of it, the data management, those innovations, they're dominated again by men. And you find a few women here and there. But as I said before, the numbers are definitely below 20%. When it comes to boardrooms, also what happens in boardrooms, in many companies, they've made it part of their diversity enhancement, because they know diversity is good business, to make sure that women are also part and parcel of that leadership and that are represented on boards, which are typically all male. In short, because the panel here is very distinguished and each woman has her own individual and unique experience, let me just say that it is difficult. It is tough. It's not tougher than any other subject. It is male dominated, yes. But women are beginning to ascend into these fields, and we see that when they do ascend into these fields, then it improves the environment for everyone. The innovations that come out of these fields also because of women's distinct perspectives. My perspective, say, as an African also, when we populate these fields, it makes it better for all and for everyone. Let me just leave it there, and then I'll be happy to address questions as they come. But thank you very much indeed for listening to me this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Judi Wakhungu. It's so exciting to have you here today. I think just before you joined in, we're talking about the environment, and we know you played a huge role while you were the Environment Cabinet Secretary in the ban of plastic. I know we were leading as a country globally, because most of the Western countries were not even there yet. So there's so much you've done, and obviously from your presentation, there's so much passion you have for women and mentoring young women, I guess, and bringing more women into the science space, the STEM career space. So I just wanted to ask one or two more questions in regard to that, in regard to role models. First, I'll direct the question to you and then to the other panelists. You got into STEM. Was there a moment when you knew you're going to get into a science career, and were you influenced by someone who got you into it?
Thank you very much. We had the good fortune of having extremely good teachers from primary school right through to high school. You know, these not only, both male and female, by the way, they were good role models and they exposed us. I remember enjoying just field work, you know, being out in the field, whether it was, you know, going to kill some tadpoles or trap some tadpoles in the streams, poor tadpoles, I apologize, you know, all these decades later, or just climbing rocks, or, you know, saying, you know, this weekend, let's go out to Mount Longonot, just because, you know, so we were always in the outdoors. You know, don't forget that those days, for some of us of a certain age, we didn't have very many toys. Our toys were outside. You know, if I wanted a toy, I'd go and make it. I'd break some sticks, but we were always outside. So there's that curiosity. And then this was also enhanced by our teachers. Our teachers who were fortunate enough brought us up to be leaders. I never heard teachers saying, oh, the boys are good at this and the girls are good at that. We didn't have any of that. It was simply, these are the subjects and you must excel. Also, our teachers wanted us to exploit our talents. And so when we showed an interest in a specific area, they would encourage us to do so. Now, why did I become a geologist? First, it was a very good excuse to be outdoors all the time. I didn't want to be, you know, sitting in a classroom. But at the same time, because I knew I was interested in the sciences, the field of geology allowed me to blend. It's an interdisciplinary field inherently anyway. So it allowed me to appreciate my interest in chemistry, my interest in physics, my interest in mathematics, my interest in biology. It allowed me to experience all of that. But then why did I specifically say now, this is geology? And I remember, you know, in the 70s when we were growing up, was that whenever there was inflation, you know, our parents would say, oh, now there's inflation, everything is so expensive, inflation. And you see, for me, when I was told, oh, there's inflation, then the answer would always be, oh, it's because of oil, the geopolitical problems, you know, in the Middle East. So I was saying, oh my goodness. So this thing called oil can actually make the price of sugar go high. So this oil must be very powerful, and I'd like to make those connections. And so I said, well, this must be very powerful. So how do I learn more about oil? And the teacher said, well, you know, you can study this field, and it's called geology. And that's how I ended up. And it's a very long story short, but that's my story.
Hello?
Hello?
Is that us that's gone? Oh, it is.
I can see Joyce moving. Internet connections and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency. This has been a wonderful talk, and we are truly honored with your presence. This is truly a very exciting day for us. Rtn Susan, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I think I lost connection there. I just wanted to talk, when you talked about, you know, having all these tools, I remembered as a young girl, grew up in Nairobi, had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. I was the one who fixed the doors. My dad called me to fix any door that was spoiled because I just loved it. And so perhaps sometimes having, you know, those tools, there was no PlayStation and things like that, and a lot of internet to do then. And trying to tell my kids that TV only started at 5 p.m. is something they cannot relate to. So I just want to go to our next panelist, Dr. Grace Mwaura. In today's world, you're a leading lady, you're top in your career. What opportunities are you giving, or what environment are you creating for young girls and boys, or early career women and men to you know, be able to achieve what you have achieved or even more, given the opportunities you already have in your workspace?
Thanks so much, Susan, for that question. And thanks so much, Professor Wakhungu, for sharing your story. I'm always delighted when I get to listen to people like you in person, because it's a journey and we have to keep learning from those who've been ahead of us. So I'm really honored for that. So I will share about what I get paid to do, and then I will also share about what I'm actually passionate about, and I don't care if you could pay me for it. So at my day job, as I mentioned earlier, I work at the African Academy of Sciences. One of our mandates is to support African scientists so that they can thrive on the continent. We have a specific focus on early career researchers, and so we specifically fund them to conduct research on the continent. When I joined them in 2018, I specifically started working on a mentoring scheme for this particular cohort of scientists, simply because of the reasons that Judi has been talking about the leaky pipeline. You go train out there, you get your PhD or your master's, you come back to the continent, and really there's no role model to enable you to actually remain in science. And even if they are there, sometimes they also don't have the capacity to really keep walking that journey with you. So I manage this mentoring scheme where I try to get mentors for these early career researchers so that we can actually support them to continue doing science and excelling at that, but also being able to balance that with everything else that is going on. There are so many things we need to be thinking about, regardless of the funding, but also the social skills that they require, their own well-being. Because let's be honest that it's not just good science that we need. We also require leadership, and we have challenges with leadership of our institutions, funding in our institutions. So by the time you turn up to produce good science, you do need the whole environment to be working. So our mentoring really is to help them with that. So I get paid to do that. But the journey goes back to how I got to get paid to do that. When I was an environmental scientist, because actually my first degree is in environmental sciences, and like Judi, I used to enjoy traveling across the world, and Diana was my classmate those days. I also developed an interest in young people as a group that is influential in society, but often for those who have worked at the UN, you will know you always have this phrase that is women and youth. It's always the others. And their voice was not really well heard. So I have been shifting my career over the years to try and highlight and bring up these voices, to try and bring their voices to the space. And I actually ended up doing my PhD in human geography for this particular reason. And so I wasn't just doing it as a PhD, but I actually have been working with a lot of young people in different movements, in the climate change movement, in the agricultural movement, figuring out how to give them a voice, how they can build their livelihoods, how they can find a space in society. I mentor a lot of young people. My whole story of coming from Kieni constituency, for those who are Kenyans, you'll know it's one of the very poorest constituencies, but that's where I came from and ended up doing 2 degrees at Oxford. The whole story of how I got there inspires me to mentor a lot of young people. So I work with different groups of young people to help them move to the next stage of their life, to inspire them to know that despite your current situation, you can actually make it and do better in life, whatever science or art that you may choose. So that's my passion, and also that enables me to join different kinds of groups that actually I'm able to offer that. That's why I'm a Rotarian, because I love giving back to community. I mentor with Akili Dada and a few other things that I do individually and as well with my family members. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you very much. So today we live in a global world, and we have to compete globally. So what opportunities are we creating for young kids, in underserved communities who do not have access to, the basic things they need or tools they need to compete globally? I was looking at Kagonya Awori, and obviously Safaricom is this big company that provides a lot. And I don't know whether you'd like to tell us a little bit about what opportunities could be, or you might be creating through your work or personal space for these communities.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So yeah, I'll answer that question in 2 parts. So yes, I do work for Safaricom, and my background is in computer engineering, as I explained. And one of the good things that I like about working for Safaricom is that we are really passionate about the underserved. We're passionate about the mass customer or the bottom of the pyramid. And even now during COVID, we've realized that more and more people are shifting to relying on the internet to, either to even for education, for accessing services, but it's not very easy for people to afford even a phone that can access the internet. So recently we launched this Lipa Mdogo Mdogo scheme that allows anyone to buy a smartphone. So you pay, I believe, like 20 shillings and 20 shillings a day, and you're able to own a smartphone that is higher end compared to the very, very, very low end smartphones. What this enables us then is that we are allowing that student or that parent or that person in a peri-urban, semi-rural, almost remote area in Kenya to jump onto the internet. And of course, by serving and ensuring that 96% of the country is covered by 4G coverage, we are then allowing them to access services that before they could not. And we are seeing great outcomes in this. We're seeing that people are increasing their livelihoods by taking it online. So that's now, my day job. As Dr. Grace said, there's that day job and then there's the personal things that one does. So for me, on a personal note, I actually like to demystify computer engineering. When I was younger, in fact, when we were talking about how did we get into STEM, I got into STEM for two reasons. Number one, my family, because there are many doctors and lawyers and engineers, and so that allowed me to know that this is a huge reality for me. I never thought that a woman could never get into STEM. But secondly, it was that I actually did not like people. So Irina and I were in the same high school, also with Diana, and Irina and I were prefects. I've been a prefect from class 1. I was tired of solving people's problems from the age of 6. So by the time I was going to Form 4, I knew that the career I get into will be around things, not people. I mean, ironically, I did a PhD, and with the PhD, you have to do research, and I'm not qualitative researcher, sort of went back to people, but I just gravitated towards technology. But now in computer engineering and technology, people always think that if you want to become a techie, you need to be a programmer, right? They think that techies are all people who crunch, into late hours behind a laptop, and that's all they do. But really the field that I'm in is human-computer interaction. It's I'm not a programmer, but I am a computer engineer. So there's a lot about computer engineering that's misunderstood. So demystifying this to young girls allows them to see that they can enter STEM in a way that matches their personal interests. They don't have to be necessarily techies. If they love design, they can be designers. And those are people in STEM, right? We need user interface designers. We need user experience designers. So it's allowing them to see that there's a lot of opportunity. They can go into robotics, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence. The list is endless. So I do this in a couple of ways directly. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I get lots of ladies, personally sending me messages and asking a lot about stuff. And it's interesting that I even get, ladies from even, the States, because I studied there, and across the world. Then also I do this every month. So I actually have a show. I call it Designers Craft. And here I talk about various careers in human-computer interaction. So I invite someone to the show and they talk about it. And this then allows people to see that, you can get into this. You don't even need a PhD, right? You can start to do courses online, get a micro degree or a nano degree, but you have to be passionate and you have to, put some work behind it. So this is one of the opportunities that I decided to do personally, so that more and more people can get into the field. They can understand that computer engineering is not this, amorphous blob that is difficult to achieve, but it's something that they can begin to practice, especially now during COVID, where we have a bit more time, or we're spending a lot more time online. So that's actually how I contribute to this space. So I'll make sure I put the link to Designers Craft. It's actually this evening. If any of you has time, please join it, invite the younger ones so that we can really talk about technology. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear. All of you are so involved in so many things. Where do you get the time to work and to do all that work, and then have all these personal jobs that are really trying to make a huge difference in young people's lives and everything? I'll go back to Diana Musyoka and ask the same question. you are in the Kenya Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, and you are an environmentalist, and it's a bit controversial, but just to how do you make young people or even older people who are not very aware, like myself perhaps, about what nuclear energy and that is all about? How do you demystify that kind of science to communities, and also bring in, as I said, underserved communities to be part of that conversation? Diana?
Thank you so much, Susan. And it's good to see Dr. Kagonya. It's been a long time. I'm happy to hear what you're doing and all that. And maybe to explain how we try to demystify nuclear technology, because most people, both young and old, they associate it with the nuclear accidents that have happened. So when our organization was established about 9 years ago, it was one of the things to do to demystify the myths about what we are trying to do as a country, because like in Africa, only South Africa has nuclear power plants that are supplying electricity to the country. So you can imagine in a country like Kenya, where we don't we actually don't have anything that could be related close to a nuclear power plant, like a research reactor. So most of our work, apart from all the research that we do and creating regulations and policies as we prepare for this, we have actually a department that is dedicated to this, and it's involved in public education and really trying to buy in the public to support this program, because we've had countries whereby the public have stopped these programs, like in Austria, in Italy, and that is in the past, when we had nuclear power plant accidents that coincided with the plans of those countries to establish nuclear power programs. So in our organization, of course, I will explain how myself I try to demystify this, but in our organization, we have programs like the Nuclear Talk series, whereby we visit secondary schools. For now, it's the target is secondary schools, but we are going to expand this to include primary school children, whereby we try to, in a forum, to explain to these students what careers are available in the nuclear industry. And that's when they get to meet someone like me, who is I still am an environmentalist, and I try to give them a picture of how I transitioned to be a nuclear scientist. So that's one of them. The other one is that something that we introduced recently. It was launched this year, nuclear essay competition, which targeted both primary and secondary school children to just try and jog their minds around what they think about nuclear energy. And this was completed in June, and we are in the process of making the judgments, and we'll be giving out the prizes soon. And the other things that we do is that we also sponsor forums like the Kenya Science and Engineering Fair, the national competition. We've been doing this in the previous years, whereby we participate in this forum, and we have our own stand, and we have students coming, and we tell them what we are doing. And what, as young as they are, as they prepare to go and do their undergraduate studies, we try and interest their minds to pursue careers in physics, in atomic physics, and probably in the future be part of this program to have nuclear power in their country. And now, just going to myself, what I would do when I have young people who under me, I have interns who come and join the company, and most of them are attached to the research department, and I try to interest their minds as much as they are pursuing their different careers in chemistry, physics, in environmental studies. I share my life and how I transitioned to be able to perform in my current role, and I encourage them to even pursue careers in nuclear power. And I've had some who have joined, and I've been able to join the graduate school that I went to in South Korea, and some of them have made it, because, if you're told to go and study nuclear power plant engineering and you're, let's say, a chemist, you think that it's going to be hard. But when they see someone like me, whose background is environmental science, and they get there and they realize that they can actually do it. And we have some of them that will be coming back to the country and probably will join the company to continue this program. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
Thank you so much. I know there's so many questions and comments, and we're going to invite you to ask your questions. But before that, I just have another question for Dr. Judi Wakhungu, Professor Judi Wakhungu. And my question is, looking at the panel today, there are all these leading ladies. So much is changing in the climate with women leading in different things. And you have given a very nice keynote address with so many inspiring things of what we need to know about the environment and what you are doing to help women, come up in STEM careers. My question to you is has your journey always been like that? Are there moments when you feel you suffer from imposter syndrome, or you pinch yourself, or is it just as nice as glamorous for you as you've seen it today?
Thank you very much for that very, very, very difficult question, actually. I was born an optimist, and I've always had very, very clear goals of what it is I want to achieve. And I've always had a very good support group. But I've also been very direct about seeking help when things have been very difficult. And it's difficult for all of us. It's just not, in fact, I don't say it's glamorous at all. I'm just dressed up today for you. I'm usually in boots. And that's where I'm more comfortable. I'm dressed up for you distinguished Rotarians, and the fellow panelists. But otherwise, I'd rather be, out there in the field, as always. It's not glamorous at all. It's not glamorous. I mean, I remember always being the first one. And, my career is the first one. As an undergraduate, I was the only Black person in the geology department. So it wasn't even an issue of being a woman. I think a woman out of maybe 60, we were a small class. I think we were 4 women, but I was the only Black person. So I can also have a different presentation on what it's like to be a Black person in STEM, and a woman. It's like it's double jeopardy, if you want to go in that direction. But I always asked for help. And I was always very clear about sharing my aspirations. This is what I want to be. What I tell and encourage young people to do is to understand what their pinnacle is. If you're able to go and to describe to your professor, to your teacher, to your neighbor, what is my pinnacle and how am I going to reach there? You are going to have a plan. And even in the darkest days, you will still know what is that prize? What is the pinnacle? What do I want to be? Now, I remember thinking, okay, I want to head a lab, or I want to be. And then, when I got braver, I said, no, I want to be the dean. And then, because I was in academia, and then when I got braver, I said, dean, forget it. I'm going to be the president of the university. So just have your goals. And if you have those goals and you share it with people, they will help you get there. Now, have the support group, because the dark days will come. I even share this with graduate students. I did not know how to cry properly, that deep, deep, deep crying until I pursued my PhD. That's when I really learned how to cry, because it was easier to leave. It was easier to leave than to go on. But the support group, the other graduate students, the family, I always had a place where I could go. And they would say, come on, come on. You're not the only one who's having this problem. Let's get up and let's get going. It's not glamorous at all. But if you have that aspiration, clear goals, know your pinnacle, and share this with others. And then it becomes the village moving with you. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much. Sometimes when we talk to young people, they think it's easy. You just sailed through. But part of the mentorship, I think, is also talking about the hard times and how hard you need to, and the times you fail and the times you're not sure. And so not the glamour. The glamour is good, but just reminding them that the glamour comes with a lot of hard work and everything. We're about to end the questioning and everything. I'm very excited about STEM education, but now move more towards team education. Team education with the A standing for us. Okay. So I want to ask all my panelists, what is your A? I'll start with Diana Musyoka. What's your A?
You're muted.
Jan, I think you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. So what's my A? Actually, if I would confess, all the while, I think I just knew about STEM. And I just got a hint, and that I would need to talk about what my A is. And I would say maybe amongst those boring scientists and all that, and maybe I would have to start looking at keenly on what my A is. But maybe I could talk about what I love doing. I still love the environment. I still love my trees and my plants. And so I usually keep a small garden on my balcony as I wait to get my my real garden when I get to have a home. So I really love collecting plants. You'd find me when I go up country to visit my parents and I see an interesting plant, I would carry it, I would pick it and go and put it in my garden here at my my balcony. So yeah, that would be my A.
Thank you. I think we normally, all of us know of Albert Einstein and his genius nature. He was a violinist, he was a musician as well. And we work a lot with school kids, we do astronomy, we take our telescope, we take our planetarium. But to just get them into that mood, we always see the need for the A. The best communicators could be the artists, the musicians. So in that regard, I also want to ask Awori, what is your A?
I actually like this question. It took me back. I'll just tell one small story. When I was about, I think I was probably 10, 11, my dad got me this microphone. It's a portable microphone. So you can, sing into it and record your voice. So, I mean, I knew that I was going to be, a singer. But of course, you grow older and you realize your voice is not like Adele's. So I still enjoy singing, but I know I'm not going to make a career out of it. But what I really love doing is writing. So, whether it's a blogging about stuff. I don't do blogs so often, but I can write. But poetry. So poetry was my muse, through my first, second, and third loves and the breakups. That was my muse now to write, poems. Some of them are a bit dark, but I actually enjoy writing poetry. I miss the spoken word events. We used to have a junction where, we used to use the cinema and used to have spoken word there, probably a decade ago. But I also love travel. Right? I love to travel. So it would be poetry, writing, travel, and of course I have a show. So I don't mind talking to people as I'm talking to you guys now. So those are my A's.
That is so cool. Sometimes you see, you and imagine, oh, she's so extraordinary. She doesn't do the things we do as normal people. But normal. And these are the things they're looking for to connect us, to make us happy. I'll bring the same question to Judi, Professor Judi Wakhungu, just because I really like the color today you brought with the headgear and everything. And it's so artistic for me. What is your A?
Okay, I have, my main A is actually theater. And you would be pleased to know that as an undergraduate, I minored in theater. You know, so I like plays. My sister Anuja and I were stars when we were in primary school and high school. I've always loved the theater. I love reading plays. I like writing plays and just going to the theater. That's the artistic side. But also I have art envy. I collect a lot of art, especially African art, you know, Kenyan women in art. I collect it because I was useless at it. And I remember that when I was 14 years old, the art teacher encouraged me to leave her class and to go and focus on chemistry. So I collect art because I admire that talent. Also, let's not forget, you know, you gave the example of Einstein and him being a very distinguished and very capable violinist. The line between science and art, you know, is also one that a lot of people have thought about. What's that line? When is it science and when is it art? So, you know, we do have that passion as well, and not only just STEM, but you'll find most STEM individuals also have the STEAM, the A, the arts. So mine is theater in terms of practicing, writing, plays, but also art in terms of I collect, especially African art. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing us into your inner world. They say that everyone is born a natural scientist and a natural artist. So with that, I'll also invite Dr. Grace to tell us what her A is. And then hang on with your questions because I'll invite Dr. Josephine Ojiambo to do the Sagitta Times and then invite you to do your questions. So let's not.
Thank you, Susan. Amazing moderator. What really very celebrating. They're celebrating the U75, celebrating something of firsts of women who made it out. I just put in a small one because it's not known to my family, but is a dear. She makes us very proud at Village Samia. Now, I just want to my duty to sit here and listen to this amazing panel of and go away with empty. Have these women to celebrate. We are celebrating women at 70. Not science to put your hand in it. The Sergeant at Arms section, go meeting in and put something on the M-Pesa. Please kindly do so. I am representing Parul and he is appealing your money. Celebrate a wonderful panel of speakers. Privilege to also celebrate your contribution on afternoon. I want to say thank you once again to our guest speakers. Back to you, Rotarian Susan.
Thank you very much. So quickly, Grace Mwaura, what is your A? And then proceed.
Thanks, Susan, for that. Being an introvert, I have always enjoyed writing since I was in primary school. So I have journaled, I have a blog, I enjoy assignments that involve more writing. But I have come to realize I truly would love to do it if I got paid for. I've recently taken up this idea that I can take 12 hours outdoors hiking to Musyoka, where we actually started hiking at 4 a.m. And I don't want to talk to anyone. We were a group of 30 plus, but I enjoy that. I just want to be in my own world, going up a mountain and just smelling the plants, identify them and figuring out what agroecology is. It's a bit geeky, but that's here. It's what I love doing. advocacy, family and community is an art. For me, it is when I don't know how to do my work, or I don't want to think about and just talk about life. That's me. Thanks.
Wow, I would love to go to Mount Ololokwe. It's beautiful. Would love to have an observatory up there. Thank you so much, panelists. I'd like to invite Rotarian Irina and Lady Justice Alwatch to give a vote of thanks. And then I'd really want to encourage you to stay on, because I'd like to invite 1 or 2 questions before we end the session. Rotarian Irina.
Thank you, Rotarian Susan. Mine is just to thank the people behind the scenes who made this possible. But before that, I'd like to thank the panelists for graciously accepting to come and speak to us. I know most of them. They are my classmates at Kenya High School. Unfortunately, we did not have Rose, but she also has a very interesting story, having worked with President Obama. And for Grace, we were with her at Kenyatta University, together again with Diana. And for Professor Judi, I've always been reading her story, and we're also from the same village, Samia. So very happy to be connected in different ways to all of them. I'd like to thank President Ritesh, of course, for allowing this to be possible through the program's team, Eva and Anthony for the meeting notifications, for the publicity on Facebook, and just keeping us abreast with the program. Rotarian Susan, we've not heard your story today, and you have a very inspiring story. Next time, we'll make sure you are one of the panelists. So thank you so much for moderating and for bearing with me when I was so busy and we could not get a time to actually plan for this meeting, but we've hacked it. And most especially Rotarian Anuja for getting us our keynote speaker. Thank you so much, Rotarians, for attending the meeting. So back to you, Lady Justice Joyce Alwatch.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give a vote of thanks to these amazing young women, most amazing. As you are all speaking, each one of you, as you are speaking, I was thinking of many years back, but that's not for today. Now, what you talked about, gender parity, could not have come at a better time in this country than now, when the whole issue of gender parity, I think it's right in the hands of the president right now. So you could not have come at a more appropriate time. Now, as I listened to your stories, I was so encouraged. I'll tell you why I was encouraged. I was out of this country working out in Holland at The Hague for 9 years. When I came back, which was April 2018, a few things surprised me. I was a bit disappointed that a lot of values, I didn't see the values that I thought I left in most young people. And I kept on saying, what could have gone wrong in just a spate of 9 years? What really went wrong? But when I listened to you today, most of you are young women. When I listened today, I am encouraged. In fact, for 1 minute, I said, oh, I was wrong. There is still value in this country. I'm so happy that each one of you have talked about the struggles, how you rose up to be where you are today. Because those of us, my generation, who came before you, all of us had to struggle. And I was happy to learn that you have had to struggle and not rely on this or that, that these are your own personal achievements, and that made me very happy. I was also very happy to all of you being ladies. I was happy to hear something about my dad did this, my father did this, because I was also a student of that. Many years back, after completing my A-levels at Limuru Girls High School, up to that stage, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I hadn't thought about it. It wasn't until one morning when my father took me to Kenya School of Law, because the faculty at the university was just about opening, handed me over to the principal, Tudor Jackson, an Irish man, and told Tudor Jackson, this is my daughter, and I want her to do law. That was the first time I learned that I was going to study law. So I resonated when I heard all of you, most of you say that. So I'm glad when you say that there is, that women are beginning to ascend in these fields, in the field of STEM. I'm encouraged. Please be the role models for those coming after you. Each one of you, you have done so well. You are all doctors, professor, Your Excellency, Ambassador. Can you be the role models for the children, for those younger ones coming after you? Professor, when you say that you liked going outdoors and you like doing things outdoor, I just realized that every time I go to my daughter's house, she has twin babies. I always take the little girl outside. So now I'll do it more. Even Tuesday, this week I was doing it. Now I'll do it more because I can see that she can one day just follow your footsteps. So thank you very much. You are good at what you are doing. Keep it up. You are the generation that came later after us, and you are doing very well, because during our time, the struggle, I cannot even explain to you how we struggled.
Yes.
There was a time when Justice Ward and myself were two women in the judiciary for almost 10 years.
Yes.
Until our male colleagues used to say, thank God you're only two. It just means that we stood firm. And thank you for standing firm. Please, please be role models for those coming after you, because you have all done very well. I'm proud of all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lady Justice.
Thank you very much, Lady Justice Awori. That was really inspiring, and you're very inspiring too. Our panelists, we have a few questions. Rotarian Michael Hopkins, I don't know if you're still here. Would you like to ask a very nice question to the panelists? Michael Hopkins?
Yeah, thank you. I am here. Sorry, we're having some internet problems here. If you allow me to just switch up the chat and see where my question is. Sorry, I'll be with you. Sorry, Gushmi. Here I go. Here, I'm ready. Sorry to keep you waiting, everybody. I have a question, which I wanted to read it rather than try and remember it. Am I allowed to say that I am a white, or should I say pink, actually, male scientist? No, not usually. Why? Actually, I don't want to. I would like to ask our distinguished invitees, therefore, do they not think it better to focus upon exploitation, poverty, misinformation, lack of opportunities for disadvantaged groups, corruption, environmental degradation, etc., rather than gender? Not that I have anything against it whatsoever. My question for today. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much. What a nice, interesting question. I don't know who would like to take up that question.
Salome, Grace here. I had read the question. I'd be happy to go first. And I've seen Kagonya has also raised her hand. Thanks, Michael, for your question. I read it when you posted, and I was thinking about it. So one of the reasons why I have done a bit of a journey in my career from environmental sciences and now being more into research management and to capacity building is for the reason why you're asking the question that you're asking. In the century that we are living, we know we are faced with so many uncertainties. Climate change is just one of those, and I can't try have that conversation here because it's really, really complex if you want to talk about climate change and how it affects all of us and how all of us can play a role. But what I want to bring out is the idea of systems thinking and understanding the whole system and how every single action we take contributes to how we solve each and every problem or how we actually increase other problems that exist. And therefore, what we are saying, we're not saying that all the other challenges that you have raised are not important, but we're also saying that if we don't address gender issues, we're not going to achieve all other issues. We're not going to reduce poverty. You're not going to address environmental degradation. They are all equally important. Take, for example, what Judi Wakhungu was talking about earlier. If you want to have more women represented, how do you address the leaky pipeline? We already know that almost 50% of the population are women, yet you don't have them in all the spaces that we have other representations. And we want to think also not women, Black women. You're thinking about diversity, we're talking about gender, diversity, inclusion, and all those terms for those who work in these sectors. So if you're not thinking about inclusion and the whole system as single parts to put together, then there is a challenge there. And for me, that's the reason why I choose to have this conversation today. But of course, tomorrow I'll be happy to have another conversation about environmental degradation or corruption, because they are all equally important. Thanks.
So allow me to add on to that. The reason I wanted to respond to this question is because you're asking about serious issues that you've mentioned, and then you've detached gender from it. But actually what we're trying to do is recognize the first thing I always say is that diversity, it allows for progress. If we look at biology, the reason that species survive is because of diversity, right? You can go to very many fields. And if I talk about computer science, the reason that we're able to innovate, the reason we're able to think differently is when we allow diversity to happen.
Absolutely.
When we recognize that there are certain spaces and places where people look the same and recognize there's no diversity, we end up building things for those particular people and living out a huge majority. I'll give an example from my world. So we look at cameras, right? So companies have been trying to do facial recognition, but there was a bias towards Black women. So you go in front of the camera screen, it doesn't recognize you because the programmers were white men. So how about we include Black women to those circles? How about when we're testing these models, we include Black women, and that will allow this technology to work for all. When you allow those smaller groups, when you allow the groups that have been neglected from the conversation to take a central part in it, it benefits all. And that's why gender comes in, race comes in. You have to bring, when you look at the world, we're diverse. So in these circles where decision makers are involved, where problem solvers are involved, you need to have that same diversity. And that's why we have these conversations around gender, around race, around minority groups, and the list is endless. So that in a short answer, diversity will allow for us to progress, and a small minority of people cannot and should never make a decision for all. We all have to be part of that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I think we are starting to eat into our time. And I think my little seat has to be taken now. So I think President Ritesh would like to take over the meeting before we lose our Rotarians. So with that, thank you so much. This has been a very nice session for me as a woman, as someone very excited about STEM, and as a Kenyan, to have all these lovely women from Professor Judi to all of you talk about issues that we need to and how we can move forward. Thank you. And with that, I'll now invite President Ritesh to proceed.
Thank you very much indeed, Rotarian Susan, for a wonderful and very well moderated meeting today. Everyone has had a lot to learn. And this was very beautifully planned and executed by yourself, Rotarian Irina, Rotarian Anuja, and the team. Congratulations. I would like just a moment to thank the panelists for today. Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellency, Professor Judi Wakhungu. Thank you, Dr. Kagonya Awori, Dr. Diana Kadzo, Dr. Grace Mwaura. Thank you to all the panelists, Rtn Susan. And I would also like to say that today we have learned a lot about technology. We have learned about the environment, nuclear energy, utilization of resources, engineering. Prior to the meeting beginning, I also got to learn a little bit about planetariums, thanks to Rotarian Susan, and gender parity, gender equality. An important thing which I learned is that you talked about your journeys, as Justice Oluoch has very beautifully said. And your stories also, together with the integration of these areas of sciences and relating them to addressing the pressing and pertinent issues we have today. It's been quite a moving talk. You have given us a lot of information to think about. And I'm particularly very happy on a lighter note that I understood all of the panelists have passion for arts and culture. So that was quite exciting. So thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to everyone who made this event possible. I'd like now to thank all the visiting clubs. Today we had with us Rotary Club of Mombasa Central, Rotary Club of Muthaiga, Milimani, Ongata Rongai, Nairobi Mashariki, Ridgeways, Nairobi Hurlingham, Kitengela, Nakuru, Nairobi Utumishi, Ongata Rongai East, Nairobi Muthaiga North, Nairobi Parklands, Karura, Gong Hills, Kilimani Alfajiri, Kisumu Mashariki, Bungoma Magharibi, Bungoma Elgon, Rotary Club of New River Onslow, North Carolina, and Rotary Club of Juba, South Sudan. So thank you all present today. And I'd like all of us to kindly raise a glass if you have something to drink. And if not, you can have your hand to your chest. This is to Rotary the world over. Thank you. And just before we go on to further questions and answers, thank you to all the panelists for your time. And I would also like to announce the next meeting. On Sunday, this Sunday, we have a special meeting in the afternoon at 3 p.m. East Africa time, 3:30 p.m. East Africa time, where Rotary Club of Nairobi, together with Rotary Club of Abuja, the ambassadors, are hosting the Rotary International President, Holger Knack. And next week, we have a wonderful panel discussion once again, but that is going to be about a global grant, which we are working on as a Rotary Club of Nairobi, together with several districts in Europe. So I welcome all individuals who have visited today to kindly visit again next week and also on Sunday. And I would also like all the the panelists today who are not yet Rotarians to kindly get our contacts, visit us frequently. There is a lot to learn from you, and there's a lot you can learn from some of the club members at Rotary Club of Nairobi. We'll be more than glad to welcome you to the club. So kindly do keep visiting. Thank you so much. Back to you, Rotarian Susan.
Thank you very much, President Ritesh. I think we still have another question from Arap Kosgei. I don't know if he's still here. Perhaps you can close with his question. Rotarian Arap Kosgei, are you here? Has a very nice question about the environment and nuclear energy. Maybe not. I'll just try and get that question. Meanwhile, I'll allow everyone to interact virtually with our panelists and ask questions at free will as I try to retrieve that question. Questions and comments are welcome.
Thank you, Susan. I'd just like to ask the panel a very quick question. If you had to put in a sentence why Kenya and Africa are important for the future of environment, what would you say as a scientist? Judi, obviously, we'll start with. In a sentence, why are Kenya and Africa particularly important for the environment in this new future, this new environment?
Thank you, Anuja. You've always posed very, very difficult questions, and here's one. So let me think about my sentence. I was just getting ready to leave, but we are the largest continent in the world, and we are therefore the host of some of the largest untapped resources in the world. We also have huge talent potential. That's why it's extremely important for Kenya and for Africa as a whole. This is the future.
And the other panelists, it's for all of you. So Grace, do you want to say something?
Thanks, Anuja. I actually wanted to say those 2 points that Judi has said. The reason why we need to be focusing on Africa is we have the largest youth population, and our continent will remain the youngest for the next 3-4 decades. So that's a huge potential there. It's all about how we utilize that. On the second hand, as Judi has said, is about our natural resource base. Really, what we do with that, if we use it sustainably, if we waste it, so you have a generation that could either use it well or could actually conserve it for the future generations to come after that.
I'll just add 2 sentences there, and I'm sure Dana can correct me on this one, and our geologist. So I know 2 things about Kenya. We have a very diverse natural energy. So our resources are, I think, are amongst top 5 in the world in terms of the potential. So if we harness it, we would get a lot of natural energy. So that's one. And the second thing about Kenya, we have also one of the most diverse number of bird species. So you see these elements about Kenya really make us, make it prime for us to, whether it's in terms of knowledge, exploration, tourism, etc. We have these things that we have that really puts us above the world. Yeah.
May I also inject and say how privileged I feel to be here today and listening to these outstanding women. And I think that one reason it's important that you are doing what you do is because often the excuse for Western powers to say we have to extract your beautiful resources or we have to be in charge of your resources is because none of your local people are qualified. And now we see how many brilliant women are highly qualified and capable of responding and saying, no, we want to be in charge of our own destiny, Africa's destiny, Kenya's destiny, because we have the capacity to do so, whether irrespective of gender, but especially because of gender, because women are this untapped resource. So I congratulate all of you so much for doing such wonderful work and having struggled as you have to achieve the positions you are in now. And I know that you are going to go forward and do even more for Kenya and for Africa in your respective fields. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
I think Diana didn't answer my question.
Yes.
So give us an opportunity.
Yes, so I would say that Kenya and Africa is important in the future of environment, and most of the points have been spoken is about how we have a diverse and immense resources, especially on energy. And Dr. Kagonya talked about how we have natural resources, and this is in, I would talk about the geothermal resources and all that. So we have the opportunity to pursue clean energy and ensure that as a country, as a continent, we don't go the way of what happened, especially during the Industrial Revolution, whereby we have impacts that we are now dealing with right now, like the climate change issues and all that. So we have the opportunity to learn from what was done in the former centuries and years and all that. So we have the opportunity to make sure that we do it right as a country and as a continent, so that we remain to be a good example to the world on how we can preserve our environment. Yeah, and maybe Susan, I'm just looking at the question from Koskei.
Yes.
And could I take this opportunity to answer it?
Yeah, I think so. It's a very important question.
Yes.
It would be nice
So
to
the
hear
question, the question is, what is your take on the practicality of pursuing nuclear energy as a country vis-a-vis wind, geothermal, and solar energy? And I would say this: as a country, we are aiming at preserving our environment in terms of how we exploit and produce our electricity. And like I said, we have a lot of resources in terms of geothermal. And of course, from the media, we know that we are running being exploited off grid and all that. And so most of our energy is from renewable resources right now. And now I know many people ask, why do we need nuclear energy? And I would like to point out that one of the reasons why we have nuclear energy, and if you look at our energy planning, nuclear energy is coming towards, it's a long-term project. And because apart from having clean energy, we also have to, we need energy security and a stable supply for our industrialization. And that is why nuclear comes into place, because one thing I would say is that nuclear is clean. Maybe this would be another debate for another day. But when you look at production, release of greenhouse gases, nuclear energy does not